The notification sound cut through the silence of my apartment like a knife. 3 in the morning. Who posts anything at 3 in the morning except insomniacs and people with nothing left to lose? I should have left my phone on silent. The screen lit up my face in the darkness, and there it was, a post from my brother Marcus, my own brother. The golden boy of Silicon Valley, CEO of a tech empire worth $40 million, sharing my photography portfolio to his 100,000 followers. But he wasn't sharing it to celebrate me. The caption made my blood turn to ice water. When your little brother thinks he's an artist but produces garbage like this, some people never learn that dreaming doesn't pay the bills. Maybe it's time to get a real job instead of embarrassing the family name. Attached were 3 of my most personal photographs. A homeless veteran I'd spent weeks gaining the trust of, a single mother working 3 jobs, a child in foster care who'd finally smiled for the first time in months. He'd called them garbage. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments already flooding in, hundreds of them, laughing emojis, people I'd never met tearing apart years of my life's work, strangers calling me delusional. A failure, a joke. The room felt like it was shrinking around me. 5 years of building my photography career. 5 years of sleeping on couches, eating ramen, believing that maybe, just maybe, I could make art that mattered. 5 years of Marcus rolling his eyes every time I talked about my work at family dinners. But this was different. This wasn't just dismissal. This was destruction. I called him. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. The 3rd time, he picked up. Jesus, Sam, it's 3 in the morning. His voice was casual, relaxed, like he just shared a funny meme instead of gutting my entire existence. Take it down, I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Marcus, please, take it down. Take what down? The innocence in his tone made something snap inside my chest. He knew exactly what I was talking about. He'd crafted that post with surgical precision, knowing exactly how much damage it would do. You know what? The post about my photography. Your followers are destroying me. A pause. Then a sound I'd heard my entire life. Marcus laughing at me. That particular laugh he reserved for when I was being what he called dramatic. Come on, Sam. I was just being honest. Maybe this will finally wake you up. You're 32 years old, living like a college student, chasing some fantasy. Mom and Dad are worried sick about you. This isn't about Mom and Dad. This is about you humiliating me in front of 100,000 people. I'm trying to help you. Sometimes the truth hurts. The line went dead. I sat there in the darkness, staring at my phone as the notification count climbed. 400 comments, 500, 600, each one another nail in the coffin of my reputation. My photography business wasn't exactly thriving, but I had clients, real clients who paid real money for my work, wedding photographers who referred couples to me for engagement shoots, a local magazine that bought my street photography, small galleries that had started noticing my work. All of that was crumbling in real time. I opened my laptop and watched my professional email fill with cancellations. The wedding photographer who'd sent me 3 clients that month. Sorry, Sam, but after seeing that social media situation, we can't risk our reputation. The gallery owner who'd been considering my work for a group show, we've decided to go in a different direction. By sunrise, I'd lost 4 clients and 2 potential exhibitions. Marcus had always been the successful one, the one who understood money and business and how to make things work in the real world. I was the dreamer, the artist, the one who believed in things that couldn't be measured in profit margins. Our parents had made that clear from the beginning. Marcus got business school tuition. I got encouragement and worried phone calls about when I'd get a real job. When Marcus built his first company and sold it for $8 million at 26, he became the family success story. When I graduated from art school and moved to New York with $2,000 and a camera, I became the family cautionary tale. But I'd been making it work, slowly, carefully, building something real, until 3 in the morning on a Tuesday when my own brother decided to burn it all down. I spent the morning deleting social media notifications and watching my follower count plummet. People were sharing Marcus's post, adding their own commentary. Someone had screenshotted my Instagram bio and posted it with crying, laughing emojis. Professional photographer, they'd circled in red. Professional disaster. The humiliation felt like physical pain, like being flayed alive in front of everyone I'd ever tried to impress. But then, something shifted. I was looking at the photographs Marcus had shared, really looking at them. The homeless veteran whose name was Robert, who told me stories about Vietnam while I waited for the perfect light. The single mother named Maria, who worked at a diner, a cleaning service, and drove for a rideshare company just to keep her daughter in a good school district. The foster child, Danny, whose social worker had asked me to volunteer for a program photographing kids in the system. These weren't just random images Marcus had grabbed from my portfolio. He'd chosen these three specifically, the most vulnerable people I'd ever photographed, the most human moments I'd ever captured. He'd called them garbage. But looking at them now, seeing Robert's weathered hands holding a letter from his estranged daughter, seeing Maria's exhausted smile as she watched her daughter's school play, seeing Danny's face light up as he petted a therapy dog, I realized something that made my chest tighten with a different kind of emotion. These photographs weren't garbage. They were the best work I'd ever done. And Marcus had just shared them with 100,000 people. I opened a new document on my laptop and started typing. The post took me 6 hours to write. I rewrote it 12 times, each version sharper than the last. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too small for what I felt. I was cold, surgical, precise. I uploaded it to every platform I had: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I tagged Marcus in every single one. My brother shared my photography last night, calling it garbage and suggesting I get a real job. He's right about one thing. These photos show reality. They show people society often ignores. People like Robert, a Vietnam veteran who's been homeless for 2 years despite serving his country for 6. People like Maria, who works 60 hours a week to support her daughter but still can't afford health insurance. People like Danny, an 8-year-old in foster care who's been in 7 homes in 3 years. My brother built his $40 million empire by creating an app that helps wealthy people find exclusive restaurants. He's never photographed a homeless veteran. He's never spent time with someone who has to choose between electricity and groceries. He's never looked into the eyes of a child who's been abandoned by everyone who was supposed to protect them. He called these photographs garbage because they show him a world he's spent his entire privileged life avoiding. A world where money can't solve everything and success isn't measured in stock options and quarterly reports. These people trusted me with their stories. They let me into their lives during their most vulnerable moments. If that's garbage, then I'm proud to be a garbage collector. But here's what my brother doesn't understand about art, about photography, about human dignity. The people society throws away often have more wisdom, more strength, more grace than those who've never had to fight for anything. Robert told me that the worst part about being homeless isn't the cold or the hunger. It's the way people look right through you like you don't exist. Maria told me she dreams about taking a vacation but hasn't had a day off in 3 years. Danny told me he draws pictures of families because he wants to remember what one looks like. Their stories matter. Their humanity matters. And if sharing their truth makes me a failure in my brother's eyes, then I'll wear that failure like armor. Because some things are worth more than money. Some things are worth more than empire. Some things are worth more than the approval of someone who's never risked anything for anyone except himself. I hit post at exactly 3 in the morning, 24 hours after Marcus had tried to destroy my career. Then I waited. The response was immediate, but not what I'd expected. The comments started rolling in, but they weren't mocking me. People were sharing their own stories. A woman whose brother had humiliated her art online. A man who'd been homeless and wanted to thank me for seeing Robert as human. A teacher who worked with foster children and wanted to hire me to photograph her students. But it was the shares that changed everything. My post started spreading beyond my small following. Someone with 50,000 followers shared it, then someone with 200,000. Then a verified account with 1 million followers picked it up. Within 6 hours, my post had been shared more times than Marcus's original humiliation. Within 12 hours, major photography accounts were reposting my images of Robert, Maria, and Danny, crediting me and asking their followers to support my work. Within 18 hours, a journalist from a national magazine had called, wanting to interview me about the power of documentary photography. Within 24 hours, my website had crashed from traffic. But the real shift happened at 36 hours. That's when the investigative posts started appearing. Someone had decided to look into Marcus, not his business success, his business practices. The first post was from a former employee, A woman who'd worked at Marcus's company for 2 years before being fired for asking questions about their diversity initiatives. She shared internal emails showing Marcus's response to employee complaints about workplace harassment. "Not our problem unless it affects the bottom line," he'd written. Then came the whistleblower post. A former senior developer at Marcus's company shared documents showing how they'd been stealing user data and selling it to third parties without consent. Screenshots of Marcus in company meetings calling their users marks and data cows. Then came the tax documents someone had leaked, showing Marcus's company had been using offshore accounts to avoid paying corporate taxes while accepting government subsidies for small business development. Then came the personal stories. College classmates sharing stories about Marcus cheating on exams and bribing professors. High school friends revealing how he'd sabotaged other students' projects to make himself look better. Ex-girlfriends describing his pattern of emotional manipulation and control. I watched it all unfold from my apartment, feeling like I was witnessing an avalanche in slow motion. Each new revelation buried Marcus a little deeper. My phone started ringing, reporters wanting comments about my brother. I declined every interview. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth finding its own way to the surface. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus had shared my photography to humiliate me, and in doing so, he'd accidentally shown the world what authentic humanity looked like. The contrast between my subject's dignity and his cruelty had become impossible to ignore. The business consequences for Marcus started immediately. His company's board called an emergency meeting. 3 major investors pulled their funding. The App Store reviews plummeted as people learned about the data theft. His speaking engagements at tech conferences were canceled one by one. But the personal consequences were worse. Our parents called me on day 3 of what the internet had started calling Empire Softgate after Marcus's company. "We had no idea," Mom said. Her voice sounded hollow. "About the business practices, about how he treated people. We thought we'd raised him better." Dad was quieter. "Your photographs," he said finally. "They're beautiful, Sam. They show something real, something that matters." It was the first time either of them had called my photography beautiful. The final blow came on day 7. Marcus's company collapsed entirely. The board voted him out as CEO. The SEC opened an investigation into the financial fraud. A class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of users whose data had been stolen. His $40 million empire became a cautionary tale about corporate greed and the price of treating people like commodities. But Marcus wasn't finished. He called me at 2 in the morning, drunk and desperate. "You destroyed my life," he slurred into the phone. "Everything I built, everything I worked for, gone." I listened to my brother cry for the first time since we were children. "I shared 3 photographs," I said quietly. "You destroyed your own life by building it on lies. I was trying to help you. I was trying to make you see reality." "No, Marcus. You were trying to make yourself feel superior by tearing me down. There's a difference." The silence stretched between us like a canyon. "I lost everything," he whispered. "You lost money. You lost status. You lost the illusion that you were untouchable. But Robert lost his home. Maria lost her health. Danny lost his family. They didn't have anything to begin with, and they're still fighting every day with more grace than you've ever shown." "So what now?" Marcus asked. "What happens to me now?" I thought about that question for a long time. What happens to someone when their carefully constructed empire crumbles? What happens when the world sees who you really are beneath the success and the money and the power? "Now you get to find out who you are when you can't buy your way out of consequences," I said. "Now you get to learn what the rest of us have always known, that dignity isn't something you can purchase, and neither is redemption." I hung up the phone. 3 months later, I opened my first solo exhibition. 24 photographs of people society tends to overlook: veterans and single mothers and foster children, immigrants and elderly people and minimum wage workers, people with stories worth telling and faces worth seeing. The gallery was packed. The photograph sold out on opening night. Robert came to the opening. He'd gotten into transitional housing and was working with a job placement program. He stood in front of his portrait for an hour, watching people see him, really see him. Maria brought her daughter. The little girl pointed at her mother's photograph and told everyone who would listen, "That's my mama. She's the strongest person in the world." Danny had been placed with a foster family who were hoping to adopt him. He drew me a picture of the gallery with all the photographs hung in a line like windows showing different worlds. Marcus didn't come to the opening. He'd moved back in with our parents and was working at a local nonprofit, teaching computer skills to underemployed adults. Mom said he was different now, quieter, more careful with his words, learning, slowly, how to rebuild a life based on something other than other people's failures. I didn't know if that was redemption or just consequences catching up to him. Maybe there wasn't a difference. The exhibition review in the city's largest newspaper called my work a masterclass in finding beauty and dignity in overlooked lives, and described the photographs Marcus had called garbage as profound documents of human resilience. But the line that stayed with me was simpler. These images remind us that everyone has a story worth telling, and everyone deserves to be seen. Standing in that gallery, surrounded by faces I'd come to know and stories I'd been trusted to tell, I realized Marcus had been right about one thing. These photographs did show reality. They showed the reality that money can't buy character, that success without empathy is just sophisticated selfishness, that the people with the least often have the most to teach us about what it means to be human. My brother had tried to destroy my career by showing the world my work. Instead, he'd accidentally revealed the difference between building something meaningful and building something profitable. The irony was perfect. In trying to humiliate me, he'd given me the biggest platform I'd ever had. In calling my work garbage, he'd forced people to look closely enough to see its value. In destroying my reputation, he'd accidentally built it stronger than it had ever been. Some battles win themselves. Some justice arrives quietly, through truth finding its own way to the surface. Some people defeat themselves by revealing who they really are when they think no one important is watching. Marcus learned that everyone is important, everyone is watching, and everyone has the power to choose whether they build others up or tear them down. I chose to build. And sometimes, that's the only revenge you need. The notification sound that had started this whole spiral now brought different messages. Gallery owners wanting to schedule shows, magazines asking for photo essays, nonprofits requesting my help documenting their work. But the message that mattered most came from Danny's caseworker. He was being officially adopted by his foster family. They wanted me to photograph the ceremony. Because every ending is really just another beginning. Every story worth telling leads to another story worth preserving. And every person dismissed as garbage by someone else might just be the most valuable thing another person has ever found. That's what my brother never understood about art, about life, about the difference between success and significance. Some things can't be measured in dollars or followers or quarterly reports. Some things can only be measured in moments of human connection, in dignity preserved, in stories honored, in truth revealed. And those are the measurements that matter most. 3 in the morning doesn't feel like the end of the world anymore. It feels like the time when real work gets done, when truth gets written, when people who've been invisible finally get seen. Marcus built his empire by making people feel small. I built mine by helping them remember how large they really are. In the end, only one of those empires could stand.